So as Peggy said, my name is Lindsey Moss. I've been with C.A.R. going on 15 years this October, which is kind of crazy. But I don't get to work with all of you in the local association staff, so you might not be familiar with me. I'm the Director of Member Experience and Service Enhancement. And one of the reasons why I'm here today is we noticed something last year about a process that, as Peggy said, could be improved, could be streamlined. And so me and my team stepped in and we worked with our accounting team and membership to make a process that's maybe a little bit painful and maybe doesn't impact everybody a lot of the time. But when we have to do it, it might take a little bit more time than it should for everybody, for you, for us. And so we just want to improve that, make this faster and easier for everyone. So we're going to talk about a new process for submitting refund requests to C.A.R. for voluntary RAF contributions, HAF contributions, and C.A.R. dues. So today we will introduce you to the new process. We know that you are in the thick of collecting dues for your members, and we know that there's a handful of times where you might need to request a refund from C.A.R. on behalf of the member for a variety of reasons. So some of the reasons we've seen pretty often are that the member was charged dues twice or the wrong amount. They maybe realize that they don't want to contribute those voluntary contributions to HAF and RAF. They didn't realize that that was an optional amount there and they wanted that money back. Or a mistake was made along the way, right? Or there's another reason. And so we're going to talk about how you can go ahead and let C.A.R. know. The one thing I want to make really, really clear here is this is just for the C.A.R. portion of the dues, right? This is not for NAR dues. This is just the money that you send to us for C.A.R. And if you need that money back and you're requesting it for a member, there's a reason for it. That's what this is for. So voluntary HAF contributions and RAF contributions, C.A.R. dues, including the state dues, including new member and late fees too, if applicable. And this is also a review process, right? It doesn't mean because something is being submitted that we're always going to approve it. We have some rules in place to review those requests so we can get back to you. So these are the couple of topics and areas we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk about the why we're introducing a process and some of the issues that we had before that we're hoping to improve moving forward. Where to find resources and self-help. This was a really big emphasis for us and for accounting and membership is we wanted to give you tools so that you had as much information about the steps, some common questions that we know will come up, some self-help resources. We wanted to make that available to you at all times. And we're always here to assist if we don't answer those questions or you need a little bit of help, but we want to make sure you're empowered as well to be able to do this with ease. We'll then go over how to submit a refund request, and I will actually go through and submit some test ones. Please don't go and do this yourself because I will be deleting my requests after this, but hopefully you seeing me do this from start to finish will give you a sense of what you'll need to do, and then what you'll expect after that, after submitting it. And then lastly, we'll talk about some frequently asked questions. These are pulled from the website, but there's a handful that I want to make sure that we talk about today. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you'll ask and let me know. Peggy, if there's anything in the chat that comes up during the presentation that would be good for clarification purposes, please stop me and ask away. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Otherwise, we will definitely have time at the end for more in-depth questions. And also,
I'll keep an eye on it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We also have some of our accounting team on here too, because I am not part of that department. I am probably not going to answer some very specific questions that you have. So we have them here as well in case I can't handle a question that you might have. And also just really clear too, moving forward, they are going to be the point of contact for this process because they're the ones that really know the nitty gritty of the M1 payment records, the e-commerce records, and all of that. So they will be your point of contact. Okay. So why? Well, before, when you needed a refund for a member, you would email accounting and we would say, send us these pieces of information. Sometimes there were some pieces of information not included, and sometimes there's a lot of back and forth. And what we realized is that this process was really manual, both for you and for us. there wasn't any standardization. So we received a lot of similar reasons, but phrased just differently because everybody has a different way of, you know, recapping something, right? But a lot of them did fall into the similar categories, which then led to more back and forth that we feel we can eliminate with this new process. And then it was also hard for us to verify some of that stuff on the back end. So looking at M1 and e-commerce. So there are some improvements that we've made to how we look at this information on our end that don't impact you, but allow us to review this a little bit faster and easier. And also we wanted to make sure that there was more tracking, right? You didn't necessarily have a copy of your request other than that email that you sent to us and that thread. So also making sure that we're communicating to you proactively that we received this request. So now what it's going to look like, it's similar in that we're going to ask for the same pieces of information. We have a form that you'll complete, and I will go over that into more details. The form will either take you down one of two paths. You'll either put all of the information on the form, or there will be an Excel template for you to download where you can enter information for several requests at once, and you'll upload that to the form and send it back in. Like I said, we'll go into details on that, and you'll be able to see that in practice pretty soon in this session when I go through some real scenarios. The benefits of this, the main benefit is standardization, right? We realize that a lot of the reasons for these fall into a couple of big different buckets, if you will. And so we realized that was an opportunity to simplify the reasons that you might be asking for this refund for from C.A.R. And we could speed up the process in giving you guidance of what you might need to do next in order for us to send approved requests to process that refund. And then we know we could send, we know there's a handful of things that also might fall outside of those buckets. Those are kind of miscellaneous others, right? There's always going to be those scenarios. But what we tried to do is limit those as much as possible so that we can make it easy for you as a drop down or a button to select to say, this is what applies to this situation. Additionally, making sure you get a copy of your request with the information that you've sent to us. And this form and collecting these fields and making sure we get this information helps us so much on the back end so that we can pull from different databases at the same time and be able to look at this request a lot faster and verify that the information that we need to evaluate this request is in place. So hopefully eliminating most of the back and forth, although we know that there will be times where you'll need to share more information with us. We might be missing something. We might have a question for you, but we want to make that as short as possible. Where the resources are located. So there is a new page. We'll go through and I'll show you how to navigate there for the refund request process. So this has a link to the form to complete. The self-help resources, as mentioning, we made sure to provide. So that includes some step-by-step guides on how to complete this, as well as FAQs. In short, the overview is there's three steps to this, right? You're going to go to the form. You're going to enter all the request details. If you are submitting for one member, you're going to put all of the details onto the form. The fields will populate it. You'll see when I go through it. There's some logic built in. It's smart so that if you select certain options, other fields will appear if we need more details on that. Now, this also includes if one member is requesting a refund for multiple items, that still counts as one member, right? So if they wanted a refund for RAF and HAF voluntary contributions, those are 2 line items for the same member. So you'll enter all of the information onto the form itself. Now, if you're submitting in a batch, we see this from some associations, I think some of the bigger ones too, especially where you might be submitting for 20 at a time or 30 at a time. We want to provide an alternative to, instead of you going to the same link 30 times, to entering something onto a spreadsheet, which has all the fields and it gives some direction of when you'll need to put information in. We'll go through and I'll give an example of that, but you can actually track requests as they come in. If you plan to submit a batch for many members at once, you can actually save the Excel template onto your computer for the billing year, and you can track it as those requests come in. You'll have everything in the format that you need, and what you'll do then is you'll save that file, upload it to the form. There's a way to just drag and drop, and then you will send the form in. And so that's another way. That's the other way to have to go down if you're doing this for multiple members at the same time. From there, C.A.R staff is going to review the request. We'll let you know the outcome, whether it's been approved, if we need further information from you, or if we cannot accommodate that request. What I will say is we're saying to allow us up to a week to review these. We know that this kind of fluctuates throughout the year of when we will receive these requests. Right now, I know a handful of people have submitted already. We are just getting this started, so it might require a little bit more patience and time to start as we start fine-tuning things. But our expectation is it shouldn't take more than a business week to review the request, and then if it's approved, we'll go ahead and process the refund depending on the selections that you made.
Lindsey, on that point, somebody sent in a request on the 21st of December and has not heard anything back. Do you want her to send in the new form?
No, so actually what we did, this is probably more information that's needed, but we had requests. Basically what we did is kind of a soft launch is for any request that came in. I believe it was for the months of November and December, and perhaps somebody from accounting or Shui from my team can clarify and chime in the chat. We went in to test it on our own, and we submitted a form on the behalf without you knowing to make sure that we could test this process. So those we are working through, and perhaps somebody from accounting can chime in to manage that expectation there. Jayme, I don't know if you want to even speak up or Sheehan.
Yes, if you sent it in via email previously, you can send it, you can request it now using the online form.
But for ones that were submitted in November and December already, are those in process?
Via email. If they sent them via email, they can now put them in the form. And because now they'll be automatically looked up and processed.
Let's touch base actually to make sure that if that one's not in process, because I know there's some that we put in.
Yeah, Lindsey, for the November and December requests, that was already in Jayme's Excel sheet. That is in the form. So we'll go over that, Jayme, today, and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Shui mentioned in the chat that for November and December requests that came in through email, they've already been put into the form. So I think that answers the question.
You do not need to go ahead and submit. We're just kind of working through, and this week is when we'll be able to start going through all of those, and then it'll be smoother, much smoother moving forward as we work through this for the first time as well. We're all learning here too. Okay, so I'm going to, in just a moment, switch over and I'll share my browser instead of PowerPoint. But these are the scenarios that we're going to go through, and I will enter some test requests. And these are the different options that I selected that I thought would be a good representation of how you might need to submit a request and some real scenarios for you all, right? So the first two are going to be for one member. So there'll be two requests for one member. So we're going to use that first option. So the member was charged in this first scenario. We're going to do one where they were charged the dues twice accidentally by the same association. The second one we're going to do is a member says that they're leaving the industry and they want a refund for their dues and they want a check mailed to them. Not all these are maybe realistic. Some are kind of one-offs, but I'm trying to show you all the different possibilities as well. And then the last one, we're going to be submitting for 3 members at once, and they're going to have different reasons for submitting a refund. One is the first one will be a member didn't realize HAF and RAF contributions were voluntary, so they want those contributions back, that money back in their pocket. The next will be that a member is joining your association as a secondary member, but they've already paid dues at another local association, and for some reason that got missed and your association accidentally charged them for C.A.R. state dues, and now they've paid state dues for a second time. And then the last reason for that multiple request is going to be a new member joined on July 1st, and they should have paid the prorated amount of $112.50. The member was charged for the prorated amount by accident starting in June. for different amounts. So they're due $18.75 back. So give me just a moment. So those are the scenarios we are going to go ahead and do. And before we go ahead and do that, what I'll do is give you a way to show you the path to how to get to this page. So hopefully most of you are familiar with the dues billing compliance and resources landing page. And this has everything that you've probably used to get started for this dues billing year and get in progress here. And what you'll notice here is this last section is the dues refund request. If you expand it, this is a small blurb, and it has really quickly, it has a link to the form itself. And the other link that I really want to highlight is the page here that has all the information and resources that you'll need, which is where we're going to go to next. So this is where you can find all the information. This has a lot of the information I'm covering here today and even a little bit more. So you'll see it broken down here in the bullet points. So how to submit a request, that's this first section. Step-by-step guides, which I'll briefly show you what they look like as well too. We have two guides. One is going to give you a real clear breakdown of how to fill out field by field for if you're submitting for one member or for multiple members. And then FAQs, which are at the bottom of the page. We have some common questions, some about the submission process and after submitting. I'll cover the main ones today after we do the demos and the scenarios. So with that, we're going to go ahead and do our first scenario. This is the form. It is, you all are probably, a lot of you are probably familiar with it because it's some of it's the same software that you all might use during the dues billing process for getting your dues billing statements reviewed, right? So first you'll go ahead and you're going to select your association. I'm just going to pick one and say Bakersfield. You enter your information. So this person, this email address is going to receive the form back. So make sure that you put the email address for the person that is the point of contact. We're going to say that we're submitting for one member, and this is where you see the form will walk you through the information. So we're going to just say, enter the member's information. And this scenario is they were charged dues twice accidentally by the same association. I'm just making up numbers here, so don't worry about that. You're going to enter their M1 and NERDS number. You're going to enter the EC control number, which these fields with an asterisk next to them are required. This is really important, these two pieces of information, because what we're going to do on the back end is we're going to be able to look up and search by the NERDS ID and the EC control number. Those are two fields that we're going to be able to pull from that are unique. You'll choose the dues billing year. We're going to say 2023. And we're going to choose this member. We said they were charged dues twice. We're also going to say that they contributed RAF as well, and they wanted a refund for that. So as you can see, that has some logic built in where if you select that, now we're going to say, okay, what's the amount of that request? And we're going to say $49. The other thing that's really important that popped up is the confirmation of the negative payment record in M1. So there are certain types of requests, and this form has that built in, where we're trying to speed up the process, and we know if a member wants money back for a voluntary RAF contribution, once we're able to verify that we see that in M1, we see that in e-commerce, this is going to be approved as long as we can verify that information on the back end. So what we're telling you is, okay, go ahead and enter that M1 negative payment record in M1. Please do that within 1 business day. Otherwise, it might lead to the back and forth that we had before. But we're trying to anticipate that already there. Now we're going to say C.A.R. dues. And we're going to say $225. Let's say also a late fee. And the reason I want to select that too is, as you probably saw, when I selected dues, that field popped up for a late fee because these are set amounts. You don't need to enter it. We don't want you to enter information that we already know the answer to. Now, here's the part that's really important. Why? So the 4 options that are here is duplicate payment, or the member is charged twice. That applies to the situation. They already paid at another association. the association charged an error, wrong amount, or other. There's something that didn't fall into these categories, and we understand that those happen, and that you want us to review that. But in this instance, they've charged twice. We charged them twice. We had the EC control number because we were the ones that charged them twice, so we have that information. And you'll see here the negative payment record in M1. We're going to ask you to enter that because once we are able to verify all this information, that is a really easy request for us to review and approve. And we understand that that was a mistake and we want to fix that. So we're going to have you check that and make sure that you'll do that within a business day. The last piece of this is going to be, how do you, if approved, how do you want this refunded? There's two options. One is directly to the local association via e-commerce. That is strongly preferred. It's 3 to 5 business days. I would say that is the vast majority of what we see come in. It's so easy for our accounting team to do that and process that. It's the fastest way to get that back to you. Some members may really want a check mailed to them and want that directly. We do have that as an option. We'll go through that in the next example, but that one just takes a little bit more time. Okay, we're going to verify we're not a robot, and we'll submit. Great. What you'll get, I don't have my email open because I don't want to get distracted by any notifications here, but you'll get an email confirmation with that details. It'll look like the form itself and all the fields you completed, and we get a copy of that as well. But that's your way to know that we received that request. So for our second example, we're going to go through one that's a little bit different, and we're going to say that the member is saying that they're leaving the industry and they want a refund back for their dues. So we're going to choose Calaveras. We're submitting for one member. We're going to enter some EC control number. We're going to select the dues billing year. And what we're going to say is other, right? It doesn't fit into any of these categories. And what you'll see, there's an option and you can put some extra information there, but what's really important is we're going to ask you, hey, this needs to be reviewed by staff. This doesn't fall into any of those categories. We need a little bit more information in order for us to evaluate this. So this is where you would give any background information, wants a refund, so because C.A.R. dues are not refundable per our bylaws, there's some extra information we need to do to evaluate to see if an exception can be warranted here, right? So if there's truly an error of somebody's paid dues twice, that's so much easier, and we understand that, and mistakes happen. When it comes to requests like this, that really just has to go through our accounting team and our managers to get some background information. I would say enter more information than I did here, right? We're just doing a quick demo, but anything that you feel would be helpful for them to evaluate that, enter that into the request details. If we have follow-up or questions for you, we will let you know and get back to you. There might be back and forth, especially on an instance like this that isn't so clear cut. Now, the difference here is instead of saying, yeah, absolutely, refund, enter an M1 negative payment record so we can verify this and process it, we're telling you not to enter it, because what we want to avoid is you entering a negative payment record, but then the request wasn't approved and now you have to re-enter stuff and do multiple tasks for that, right? So we're giving you the guidance of don't enter a negative payment record. We still need to look into this. We will let you know the outcome of this. So we'll have you check that box. And in this instance, the member said, I want a check mailed to me. We're going to have to ask them for a W-9. This is why it's a little bit more complicated, right? Is we need that extra bit of information from them, and that might take some time for us, and then put their mailing address there. So we're trying to save a little bit of time here. And that is for submitting for that. Now for the last one, thank you for all bearing with me. I know this is a lot of talking. We're going to select multiple members, right? We're submitting for 3 at once. And we're going to say how many. This is just for us to kind of spot check and make sure here. And you'll see how this form looks different. We're saying to download this form. You'll see that'll download onto your computer. I already have it downloaded. And you can drag and drop or upload the completed file here. And that's what we'll do after. So we're going to go ahead. This Excel sheet is fairly long, but pay attention to the headers because this is where you'll be able to see what's required and any kind of clarification of selecting from a drop down or when you may need to respond to something or don't need to respond. So for simplicity, we're going to put these all for the same date. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that there. From the association, you'll select from the drop down. And you'll put your information. Oops, that's definitely going to open that. So we'll start with the first one. And this is the member didn't realize HAF and RAF contributions were voluntary. So there is logic built in to this form as well. We're going to put the dues billing year. We're going to say $49 for RAF and $10 for HAF. And for this, we know that it's required. You can see in red there, it'll be easier when it's on your computer screen if you've selected any of these. So this is just the way for us to know and to remind you of, yeah, please go ahead and put that negative payment record in M1. Now, there's nothing for C.A.R. dues they're requesting. This is just they want their voluntary contribution money back. So we're not going to fill anything for the C.A.R. dues or the late fee. There's no reason for it because we're not asking for C.A.R. dues. And all of these, because it's just for RAF and HAF, are not applicable until we get to how do they want their money back. We're going to say refund to the local e-commerce. By the way, these drop downs are standardized. That's part of that of you can't change the words, you'll get a pop-up. So just choose the drop downs and you'll see there. Because we're doing via EFT, we don't need to enter their email address or their mailing address. Goes all the way to T. This is where the step-by-step guides will be helpful because we break it down by column, very detailed. Okay. Go ahead and enter a second one for a member. They're joining as a secondary member for your association, but they were charged dues, state dues at your association. So now they've had paid C.A.R. dues twice. So there's nothing for RAF or HAF, but when we get to C.A.R. dues, we're going to say that they want dues back. So the reason that this isn't a standardized one and where we have a drop down is there's prorated amounts, and with the 2022 year and 2023 amounts, we know sometimes that C.A.R. dues might not be $225, as we'll see in the last example. The reason is that they already paid at another association, and you'll see here it says you'll need to enter a payment record, a negative payment record in M1. In which case we will say yes there. And to make it easy, we'll just do the refund and that's it. And for our last one, sorry for my lack of creativity with the names. So in this instance, they joined July 1st. So we know that this is a dues and they want a refund of $18.75. And the association charged an error, right? There was a wrong amount of, they should have been paying since July, but they were charged for June. So member joined in July, but paid dues starting in June. Now, what you'll notice here is you have to provide more information and you do not enter a negative payment in M1. That's one where we're going to review it and make sure that that stuff matches up and get back to you and confirm. So the only ones for dues where it is simplified, if you will, are the members paid dues twice for some reason, and we're able to verify that because they paid twice at yours, or they paid twice because they paid once at another association and at your association. Anything else, the wrong credit card was charged, they paid the wrong dues amount, those we want to verify those details a little bit more. That is not as common, and we just need to make sure that we have that information and to give you the right guidance of what to enter for M1, right? And how to reflect that. And for simplicity, but if we were to say member wants the check mailed, that's when we would fill out these last two columns. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. To my desktop, and I can't remember which association that I chose, but you can put in your association name. That would be probably helpful. I think it was Bay East. Yeah. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take that file from my desktop. I'm just going to drag it on there. And you'll see that it has uploaded. You're going to also verify that you're not a robot and send. Now the difference is when you get this email back, you'll have a link to download that Excel. So it'll look a little bit different than if you sent one. So that's an overview of how to go about and do the request based on those different scenarios. Peggy, are there questions that would be good to ask?
Actually, Shui is answering all of them in the chat as we go along, which is awesome.
Shui is amazing.
Yes.
So that was a lot of information. That might be a lot to pick up and learn at once. So one of the things that we provided here is step-by-step guides. And I'm talking about multi-page guides with explanation and context because I don't expect you to remember all of that after today's session. There's one for the single member and for the multiple members. We wanted to make sure and just separate those a little bit because some of you may never use the multiple member, right? It just might be as they come in. But as you can see here, there are several pages. We provide the link to the form. We tell you how to fill it out. There's guidance for depending on what reasons that you select, right? So if you're saying that they've paid dues twice, we provide some context and explanation there. So hopefully those are helpful. What I would also recommend, I had this at the end of my presentation, but I'll just say it now, is we have a link to the Excel template here. If you're planning to submit them a bunch at a time, this will be updated every billing cycle. We'll update the Excel template. This is ready for this year. Go ahead, save that to your files, and you can just add them as requests come in so that all you have to do is drag and drop by the time that you're submitting if you're planning to do multiple at once, which may be easier for some of you. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation and just go over a couple of frequently asked questions. So first, and probably the biggest one, is our RAF contributions, HAF contributions, and C.A.R. dues refundable. So for voluntary contributions, we do permit refunds. We just need to verify that we see it in M1 and in e-commerce. There's some outliers where Sri is probably answering some of those questions of e-commerce payments, right? And if we need more details from you to look into that, our accounting team will work with you. Dues are not refundable, but as I was mentioning, if they've paid dues twice, obviously that's an error. We'll figure that out once we can make sure that information's in there. Anything else, we just really need to look at with a fine-tooth comb and understand a little bit more. You know, there are exceptions that I'm sure have been granted at times, but I also just want to make sure you're managing the expectations too for members that they'll look into this. We'll see if there's anything that can be done. When do you enter a negative payment in M1? So that we've tried to build into both the form and the Excel template when you can go ahead and do that at the time of submission. Do that within 1 business day to help make this process as fast as possible. So the big like buckets, if you will, for those are voluntary contributions, as I mentioned, and if the members paid dues twice. Everything else, do not enter a negative payment. We've tried to make it as clear as possible as well on the form and the Excel template. Another question, so if one member, and I know I addressed this before, but I just want to, now that you've seen it, make sure that we go over some of these things too again. So if they want a refund for multiple things, such as RAF and HAF, does that count as 2 requests or is it 1? No, it's 1. So you're going to enter 1 form, but you're going to put a negative payment for each individual item in M1. So you'll have to enter the negative payment for RAF and for HAF. And the date that you'll use for that is the date of the original transaction, right? Not today's date, not the date of submitting the request, but the date of the transaction from the member. Now, another scenario that we've seen come up is, let's say a member was charged $48 for a voluntary, or $148 for a voluntary contribution, but they only wanted to do $49, right? If they were charged a higher amount and wanted a smaller amount. So the way that would look in M1 is you're going to enter a negative record for the first record and cancel that out, and then the correct amount that should be charged for the third one. So there's going to be 3 payment records for that 1 item. This is really for accounting principles, right? And having a ledger system to make sure everything's properly balanced, and that if we had one thing that was a mistake, we're canceling that out to zero that out, and then we're going to enter the proper entry. That's really important. Some other things that we've covered, but to remind you all about, how long will it take to review the request? Give us a week. It'll take a little bit longer to start, but hopefully we'll be up and running. Ideally, if we can do stuff faster, we would love to. So it's going to be a week to review it. And then after that, the time for processing for approved requests, the refund, will depend on the option you selected. So if it's back to the local association via e-commerce, which is the preferred method, that's 3 to 5 business days. If you opted for the member to receive a check in the mail, that'll take 2 weeks or longer based on the additional information we'll need to collect from them. And if you have any other questions about the request, the status, the process, you can reach out to accounting because they'll be the point people still for the refunds and reviewing them. And this is just stuff that I referenced earlier about the step-by-step guides and the Excel template, just reminders there.
Lindsey, we have another question in the chat. If a member pays in January and passes away in March, can the family request a refund?
So what I will say is we don't have a time limit on when we can review the request of, right? We can always review it, but we can't guarantee that that will be approved or not. So that's one of those other categories. We certainly empathize and understand that's a decision that our managers will make based on the information. Provide as much information as you can. That will be helpful, and we'll get back to you on that. I don't know if Shu Yin wants to speak to that.
Yeah, Lindsey, this is Shui Yin, accounting manager. Yes, we will review the request and not guarantee can be approved. Also, we will discuss with our legal team to make sure that it is refundable, because as you know, dues are non-refundable. So, and also depends on the days too, you know. Sometimes we'll make exception, you know, if it's early January, the member passed away, we will do exception, you know. But if it is now all the way to February, the member already used our member benefit. So usually we do not refund. So it's case by case review, you know, and decision. And also we want to make sure that we are okay with our legal department. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Shu Yin.
Yeah, there was one person who sent a question to me directly. I think that is again for the accounting team, Shui, to answer. On similar lines, is there any deadline or cutoff date to request refund for someone leaving the business?
You know, someone leaving the business, this is really tough because dues are non-refundable, right? And if the realtors leave the business early in January, we might talk to the legal if it is okay. But it's all case by cases, you know, and it's just really hard, you know, because normally we don't refund once you pay dues. But when some member pass away, there's a little bit difference, you know. We just come from our sympathy, you know, that we can make an exception, but leaving the business is hard for us to do a refund since the bylaw said that is non-refundable. So, and I hope I answer your question. And Keismond, if you want to chime in, you can chime in and give some more information.
Thank you, Shui. I was going to chime in, but not to talk about that specifically. I really wanted to talk about the negative payments that the associations are adding to the M1 system. So just keep in mind, there are some associations that can upload a negative payment from their membership system. But I am aware that if you use Rapatoni, the Rapatoni customers do not have that option. So if you're using Rapatoni, you actually have to go into M1 and manually add the negative payment. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Thank you, Keismond. Does anybody else have any other questions for Lindsey at this point?
There's another question that would be, I think, for Shui. So in the case of a member passing away, do you suggest the request be submitted for a prorated amount?
Normally, this is a really tough question. Normally, if we refund the whole thing. We don't really prorate it. You know, whatever they pay for the dues. And if being approved, then we'll refund the whole amount. Either we reject or refund the whole amount.
Great, thank you, Shui. In the interest of time, I think on some of these one-offs, you probably should call accounting directly or email accounting directly to figure out what needs to be done. If Lindsey doesn't have anything else, we're going to switch gears over to Keismond at this point. Lindsey, this was really great. Thank you very much. You were very thorough. Great job. And now we're going to go to Keismond, and Keismond's going to talk about billing for 2023 and what's next.
Thank you, Peggy. I think I'm going to turn my camera off only because I'm using my hotspot. My internet is down. And so on my end, I'm getting a message that my bandwidth is low. So I'm hoping that I still sound clear to everyone. So if I can get a thumbs up that I sound okay. I'm kind of scared to share my screen. So Peggy, do you mind if I just talk this through, or do you want me to give it a try?
I would give it a try unless you think that it's going to really sink you.
Okay, well, let's try it.
Keys, I'm not sure that that's working. So if you want to just wing it.
Okay. How about that?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So how do I sound? Do I still sound clear?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay, perfect. All right, so real quick, I know we don't have a lot of time. I think I have 10 minutes, so I'm just gonna run through this really quick, but I do have some great information to share with you all. So I just wanted to talk about the January BCT reset, which is going to take place tomorrow. And so here's what you can expect with the BCT reset tomorrow. So compliance scores, you should expect your compliance scores to decrease. Paid records will switch back to unpaid. Your non-members added to the 60-day grace period in November and December of 2022 will automatically become delinquent. Your non-members added to the BCT grace period in January will remain in the grace period for 60 days, so that will be the same. Your lift rolls, MLOs, commercial agents, and your honorary members will remain exempt on the BCT. Local associations must collect a 2023 lift roll and MLO certification form from your broker. So you want to make sure that you have a certification on file for all of your active lift rolls and MLOs. And then for your honorary members, you just want to make sure that the state dues waive flag on M1 is set for yes, so that when you're billing your honorary members, they're not included in the billing cycle. So that's important to remember. And also for your 2023 financial records that we've received and processed by our finance team, you will see that information appear on the BCT also tomorrow. So they've already started processing the financial records for 2023 that we've received so far. So tomorrow you will see that information appear on the BCT with the reset. All right, so let's talk about the 2023 financial process. So the financial process has changed just a bit. As you know, C.A.R. dues money and financial records must be submitted to C.A.R. By the 15th and the last day of each month. This should be done simultaneously, which will help our finance team reconcile the data in a more efficient way. So you just want to make sure that you're submitting your dues payments through NAR's e-commerce system, and you also want to make sure that you're uploading your financial records to M1 as well. Dues money must be submitted again to C.A.R. through NAR's e-commerce system, and the financial records must be uploaded to M1 with the correct payment type, code, billing year, and payment amount in order for our finance team to process the records successfully on our end. Again, you will see the update on the BCT usually within 48 hours. The beginning of the year is usually the busiest time of the year for us. So I'm given 48, let's just say 48 to 72 hours, you will see the update on the BCT. All right. Oh, sorry about that. Let me just go back. All right, I'm just going to keep going. My screen is still some weird things on my end. So as you know, the C.A.R. dues has increased for 2023. Last year, the dues was $184. For 2023, the C.A.R. dues is now $225. The new member fee is $100, and the late fee is now $50. And so one thing to keep in mind is the late fee goes into effect on March 1st. So that means all renewing members that do not renew their membership before March 1st, if they decide to come and renew on March 1st and after, they will receive a $50 late fee. One thing to also remember is that C.A.R. will not waive the late fee. A lot of times when members have to pay that late fee, they like to request that we waive that fee. And so I just want to remind you that C.A.R. will not waive the $50 late fee. Also, NAR dues for 2023 is $195. Here's one thing that I don't think we've ever talked about is, does NAR have a new member fee or a late fee? Well, they do not have a new member fee or a late fee. So that's just something to remember. All right, so let's talk about the non-member fee. So C.A.R.'s non-member fee is $225 and N.A.R.'s non-member fee is $150. The non-member fee is not prorated. The only time we will prorate the non-member fee is if the broker has paid a non-member fee for the year. That is the only time that the non-member fee can be prorated. Also, local associations are not required to collect a $100 new member fee or a $50 late fee with the non-member fee assessment. All right, so let's talk about the February 28 dues delinquency deadline. So let's talk about what the bylaw says about the dues delinquency deadline. So the bylaw says that due payable in advance on the first day of, or also mentions that non-paying 1 month of the due date and terminated within 2 months of the due date, which would be February 28th. And so you want to make sure that on or before February 28th that you inactivate all unpaid members. And really it's simply a two-step process. And so the process is, step one, you're going to inactivate all unpaid active members on or before February 28th. The second step in the process is to submit C.A.R. dues payments for all active renewing members through N.A.R.'s e-commerce system on or before February 28th. And that is really it with the dues delinquency process. I know a lot of times we make it seem like it's, a difficult process to manage, but it's really just a two-step process. And it's just making sure that you inactivate your unpaid members by the February 28th dues delinquency deadline. The reason why that's important is because on March 1st, C.A.R. is going to take a snapshot of the data that is in M1. And so anyone that is showing active, C.A.R. is going to bill the association for those members, even if you have not collected dues from those agents. So that's another reason why it's important to inactivate all of your unpaid members by February 28th. All right. So let's talk about the March 31st compliance score deadline. The reason why I want to talk about this now is because the February 28 dues delinquency deadline will also impact your compliance score. The reason why your compliance score will be impacted is because when you inactivate a realtor member, they automatically become non-members. And so the March 31st NMSP compliance score deadline, it pretty much just means that you want to make sure that you meet the compliance objective of 97%. Your NMSP score should be 97% or higher on March 31st. The focus should be on your delinquent NMSPs and your NMSPs that will be delinquent within 45 days. The brokers also have an option when it comes to their non-members, and those options include they can pay the non-member fee, which includes the $225 plus the $150. Also, local associations can also charge a non-member fee. But keep in mind, if you're going to charge a non-member fee, your non-member fee should not exceed what your current local dues are for the year. Also, the part of the broker's option is they can certify the agent as a LIFRO by signing the LIFRO certification form. So any agent that's in the system as an active LIFRO, you just want to make sure you have a signed LIFRO certification form on file. The other option for those non-member agents, they can join as a realtor member, which is what we want to happen. And then last, the broker can drop the agent's license. When they drop the agent's license, that puts the agent's license in a license status of licensed MBA. So those are the four options that your brokers have when it comes to meeting compliance. All right, so we have 3 compliance deadlines throughout the year. The first deadline is coming up, which is March 31st. The second deadline is August 31st. And then the last deadline of the year is December 1st. So those deadlines have not changed over the past few years. All right, so let's talk about what prevents associations from meeting the 97% compliance objective. And I'm just going to go through this really fast. So again, it's the one thing that prevents associations from meeting the objective is delinquent records. So when you have agents, non-members that move from the grace period to the delinquent section, those records are going to have a negative impact on your compliance score. And again, I just covered this. The broker has the following options when it comes to managing his or her delinquent agents. All right, let's quickly talk about the dues proration schedule. So the dues proration schedule is actually set up to benefit the brand new member. So a brand new member is simply someone that has never been a member or someone that has had a 1-year lapse in membership. So this is important to remember, and I'll just quickly go over one of these scenarios. So if a realtor member who paid 2020 dues and pays late in 2023, they do not get the benefit of paying the prorated dues amount because that individual is still considered a renewing members. And renewing members must pay the full year dues. Now, let's just say that renewing member decides to wait until the month of October 2023 and they paid 2022 dues. They still must pay the full year dues plus the $50 late fee. So keep that in mind. A licensee who was a LIFRO, MLO, or non-member salesperson in 2022 and decides to become a realtor member in 2023 is actually considered a brand new member. And so the membership dues are prorated for that individual and they should be charged the $100 new member fee. And I'm not going to go over all of these, but I'll just go over the last one. So a member who paid dues in 2022 and decides to join a new local association in 2023 is still considered a renewing member and should not be charged a new member fee. And their join date should not change. Their join date should remain the same. Even though they're new with your association, they're still a renewing member, and so their join date should remain the same. All right. So let me stop sharing. And I am going to.
So Keys, we had 2 questions in the chat, and I didn't catch them in a timely fashion, but
okay.
Another one just popped in, hang on. On the submitting of the RAF that's happening now twice a month, Sarita wants to know if that means that the initial records need to be submitted on Friday the 13th because the 15th is on a weekend.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So anytime the date falls on the weekend, you want to make sure you get that information over to C.A.R. that Friday. Even if it's that Monday, I believe we should be fine. I know Shui probably doesn't like me saying that, so I'll let her jump in if she wants to. But if it's that Friday, you definitely want to get it in. But because it falls on a weekend, if you get it into us by that Monday, we should also be fine. But I'll wait for Shui to chime in.
Thank you, Keismond. Yes, this is actually, Brian has mentioned it at the town hall meeting. Any due date on the 15th and end of the month, it falls on this weekend, it needs to submit on the Friday. That was mentioned by Brian.
Great. Thank you, Shui.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then Laura wants to know if people pay their RAF with a check or cash, do you need those names provided if it didn't come through e-commerce?
Well, Peggy, well, that question is,
so if they're
right?
paying,
Keismond, go ahead. Oh, he's
I was
frozen.
going to say if they're paying by check, those monies, am I frozen?
No, but you're kind of in and out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then I'll just.
You know,
Yeah,
okay,
everybody is frozen on my end.
Let me chime in. If they pay by check, they still have to put the record in financial record in M1 with the nurse ID, first name, last name, and the amount of the dues they pay. And then they have to go in, either they can do a EFT in e-commerce and pay us and let us know that how many member they pay. So we, they cannot send a check to us, to C.A.R. Whatever payment they receive, either check or have to go through e-commerce. They can send us a EFT.
Thanks, Shui-Yin. And Ginger, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and ask your question. It's just too long for me to paraphrase.
Okay. If the deadline is February 28th to remove all non-paying agents, members, getting them off our record, why isn't February 28th also the deadline for requesting a refund? Because both members will have received the same benefit, but if a member does pay, they have the potential for their refund request to be declined, but they've received the same level of benefit that a non-paying member has up until February 28th. Just an observation. I know that there are restrictions. Just wondering what the difference is.
Ginger, okay, this is Shui-Yin again. If the member is drop out, right? Are you saying that they drop out on February 28th? You drop the member by February 28th. And however, dues are non-refundable. They are due on January 1st. And by law, C.A.R. bylaw. Keismond, you want to chime in?
Yeah, am I still choppy?
You're good right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna move. I'm just gonna move my mouth. So the February 28 dues delinquency deadline is only for those agents who have not paid. So when you have an active member that goes from January to February and they have not paid, you just want to make sure that you inactivate those agents on or before February 28th. And so that's separate from the refund process, because the refund is based on a member that has paid dues.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the February 28th, those agents would not have paid dues.
Yes. And I just want to chime in a little bit too. When the agent, actually C.A.R. bylaw said that it's January 1st is the due date for all the renewal member. So when the member pay, dues are non-refundable. So I hope that's what Keismond was saying, that that's two separate cases.
Great. Thank you both for chiming in on that. And in the interest of time, I am going to end this AM 101 because we're quite a bit over at this point. And if you have any other one-offs, I would suggest that you contact, depending on what it is, either Lindsey, Shui-Yin, or Keismond for this. And thanks to everybody for attending. And most of you hung on until the bitter end. So thank you for that as well. We'll be sending out a follow-up email probably later today, possibly earlier tomorrow morning, depending on when we get all of our information. And thanks to everybody who participated. It was great to see all of you.